I spent 8 years selling the American dream to other people. Beautiful homes with white picket fences, spacious backyards, and neighborhoods where children played safely in the streets. I became one of the top real estate agents in my city, closing deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, making families cry tears of joy when they got the keys to their forever home. But my own dream? It was built on a lie so devastating that when the truth finally came out, it didn't just break my heart. It shattered my entire understanding of family, loyalty, and love. My name is Alina Bailey, and this is the story of how I discovered that the home I'd been paying for nearly a decade was never meant to be mine. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. It started on a Monday morning in late April, the kind of perfect spring day that made people want to buy houses. I just closed a deal on an $850,000 colonial in the suburbs. A young couple with twins on the way, both of them doctors who'd been searching for a year. When they signed the final papers, the wife cried and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You found us our forever home," she whispered. "Our children are going to grow up here." I smiled and congratulated them. But as I drove back to my office at Prestige Realty, I couldn't help but think about my own forever home, or rather, the homes I'd been supporting for the past 8 years. It all started the summer after I graduated from college. I was 20 years old, fresh out of university, with a business degree and a newly minted real estate license. I just earned my first commission check, $4,200 for helping a retired couple downsize to a condo. I remember staring at that check, feeling like I'd won the lottery. That same day, my father called. "Alina, sweetheart." His voice had sounded strained, tired. "I need to talk to you about something. Can you come by the house?" I drove to the family home on Maple Street, the house where I'd grown up, where my mother had taught me to bake cookies in the kitchen and my father had pushed me on the tire swing in the backyard. When I arrived, both my parents were sitting at the kitchen table, looking older than I remembered. "What's wrong?" I asked, my heart already sinking. My father, Spencer Bailey, was a man who'd worked construction for 30 years. My mother, Nomi, had been a part-time bookkeeper. They were good people, hard-working people, but they'd never been great with money. "The property taxes have gone up significantly," my father explained, sliding a stack of bills across the table. "Between this house and the rental property on Oak Avenue, we're looking at an increase of almost $400 a month. We're struggling, honey. We might lose one of the houses." I looked at the bills, my business degree kicking in as I calculated the numbers. Oak Avenue was a rental property they'd bought 15 years ago as an investment. They'd always told me it was their retirement plan. "How much do you need?" I asked. "If you could help with maybe $2,000 a month just until we get back on our feet." I looked at my first commission check still in my purse. Then I looked at my parents who'd sacrificed so much to put me through college. "I'll do it," I said. "Whatever you need." That was 8 years ago. What started as $2,000 a month gradually increased. First to $2,800, then $3,200, and eventually settled at $4,200 a month. Every single month, like clockwork, I transferred money from my account to my parents. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was investing in family. I told myself that when they eventually passed, I'd inherit both properties, and it would all balance out. I was so wrong. Over those 8 years, I built my career. I became a top performer at Prestige Realty, consistently ranking in the top 5% of agents in the region. But while my clients bought their dream homes, I lived in a cramped 400 square foot studio apartment downtown. While my colleagues took vacations to Europe and the Caribbean, I worked 70-hour weeks and spent my weekends showing houses to other people. Every penny I saved beyond my basic expenses went to my parents. And every time I visited the family home on Maple Street, I'd find my older brother Corbin there, 32 years old, living rent-free in the basement. Corbin was 4 years older than me, and for as long as I could remember, he'd been the golden child. He was creative, my mother always said. He was ahead of his time. He was building the next big tech startup. In reality, Corbin hadn't held a steady job in over a decade. He'd burned through 3 failed business ventures, each one funded by loans from our parents that were never repaid. He spent his days playing video games, talking about revolutionary app ideas that never materialized, and asking me for small loans of $200 or $500 whenever I visited. Just until my investor meeting next week, he'd say, "I'll pay you back double." He never did, but my parents always defended him. "He's going through a rough patch," my mother would say. "He just needs time to find himself." Meanwhile, I was finding their mortgage payments, their utility bills, their property taxes, and their peace of mind. The email arrived on a Monday morning in late May. Subject R.E. Bailey Family Trust. Administrative documents required from Sterling and Associates Law Firm. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but something made me open it. Dear Ms. Bailey, this correspondence is to inform you that your presence is requested at our offices on Thursday, May 23rd at 2 p.m. regarding administrative matters concerning the Bailey Family Trust. Please bring valid identification. Sincerely, Richard Sterling, Esquire. I called my mother immediately. "Mom, did you and Dad set up a family trust? I got an email from a lawyer." "Oh, yes, honey," she said, her voice oddly bright. "Your father and I are just updating our estate planning. We're getting older, you know. We want to make sure everything is in order. It's just paperwork, nothing to worry about." "Do I need to bring anything?" "Just yourself, sweetheart. It'll be quick." I should have known something was wrong. My mother's voice had that artificially cheerful tone she used when she was hiding something. But I was busy. I had 3 closings that week and a difficult client who kept changing her mind about everything. So on Thursday at 2 p.m., I walked into the offices of Sterling and Associates, expecting to sign some routine documents. The law office was exactly what you'd expect. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, and shelves lined with legal volumes that probably hadn't been opened in decades. Richard Sterling was a man in his late 60s with silver hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. "Ms. Bailey," he greeted me, shaking my hand with a grip that was just slightly too firm. "Thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." On his desk were 2 thick manila folders, each labeled Bailey Estate Planning. "Your parents have been very thorough in updating their will and trust documents," he said, opening one of the folders. "They wanted to ensure that their assets are distributed according to their wishes. I just need you to sign here, acknowledging that you've been informed of the changes." "Changes?" I asked. "What kind of changes?" He slid a document across the desk. "Just standard updates. You can read through it if you'd like, but it's quite lengthy. 47 pages of legal language." I'm a real estate agent. I read contracts for a living. Something about his tone made me suspicious. That subtle edge of discomfort, like he was trying to rush me through something. So I started reading. The first few pages were standard boilerplate. Definitions, legal terminology, trustee appointments. But then I reached page 12, and my blood turned to ice. Article 4. Distribution of real property, all real property located at 428 Maple Street and 1517 Oak Avenue, including all improvements, fixtures, and appurtenances thereto, shall be transferred upon the death of both grantors to Jacob Mitchell Thompson, also known as Corbin Bailey. I read it again, then again. I flipped through the rest of the document, my hands shaking. Page after page of legal provisions about Corbin's inheritance, instructions for how the properties should be transferred, details about property management, tax implications. My name didn't appear anywhere. Not once in 47 pages. I found only a single mention of me on page 36. Personal effects and family photographs may be divided at the executor's discretion among surviving family members. Personal effects. Photographs. I'd paid $237,412 over 8 years. I knew the exact number because I tracked every cent in my spreadsheets, and I was entitled to family photographs. "Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "is this a mistake? Is there a separate document with my name?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. This is the document your parents instructed me to prepare, Ms. Bailey. I need to see my parents, right now." "I don't think that's..." I stood up. "Tell them I'm coming to Maple Street. Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes. And tell them they'd better be ready to explain this." I drove to my childhood home with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. I couldn't cry. I was too shocked, too numb, too busy running calculations in my head. $237,412 over 8 years. An average of $29,676.50 per year. $2,473.04 per month. For nothing. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Corbin's beat-up Honda parked in its usual spot. Of course he was here. He was always here, living off our parents like a parasite. I didn't knock. It was still my childhood home, even if apparently it would never legally be mine. My parents were sitting in the living room. My mother was crying. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years since I'd seen him 2 weeks ago. And Corbin was on the couch playing a video game, a half-eaten pizza on the coffee table next to him, surrounded by empty energy drink cans. He didn't even look up when I walked in. "Alina," my mother started, her voice breaking. "Sweetheart, let us explain." 8 years, I said quietly. $237,412. That's what I've given you. That's what I've sacrificed while I lived in a studio apartment barely big enough for a bed and a desk. While I worked 70-hour weeks. While I turned down promotions that would have required me to relocate because I told myself I needed to stay close to help family. "We can explain," my father said. "Then explain. Explain why my name isn't in that will. Explain why Corbin," I gestured to my brother who was still playing his game, "who hasn't contributed a single dollar, who hasn't held a job in a decade, who still lives in your basement at age 32, gets everything." My mother stood up, wringing her hands. "Alina, sweetheart, you have to understand. You're successful. You make good money. You're a top real estate agent. You can buy your own house, build your own life. But Corbin, he needs security. He needs a foundation. He's still trying to find his way." "Find his way?" I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. "Mom, he's 32 years old. He's not finding his way. He's avoiding responsibility, and you're rewarding him for it." "That's not fair," my father said. "Your brother has had a harder time than you. He's struggled." I struggled. The words exploded out of me. I struggled through college while working 2 jobs. I struggled through my first year of real estate when I barely made enough to eat. I struggled to build a career while sending you thousands of dollars every single month, but I didn't ask for handouts. I didn't expect everything to be given to me. Corbin finally paused his game. "Geez, Alina, calm down. It's just money. You make plenty of it." I turned to look at him, really look at him. His unwashed hair, his stained t-shirt, the pile of pizza boxes stacked in the corner, the complete lack of ambition or drive in his eyes. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" He laughed. "This is my house. Well, it will be. Get out, or I swear to God, Corbin, I will make you regret every cent you've ever taken from this family." He looked at our parents. "You gonna let her talk to me like that?" My father stood up. "Alina, you're upset. Why don't we all take a breath and—" "I'm not upset, Dad." I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "I'm not angry. I'm just calculating, because that's what I do. I calculate value, I assess investments, and I determine when to cut losses. And you know what I've realized? This family has been my worst investment." I walked to the door, then turned back. "I'll be stopping all payments effective immediately. The mortgage on Oak Avenue, the utilities for both houses, the property insurance that's in my name, the lawn service, everything. If Corbin is inheriting these houses, then Corbin can pay for them. Let's see how long you can keep them when the golden child has to actually contribute something." "Alina, you can't," my mother started. "Can't what? Stop giving you my money? Watch me. In fact, consider this my notice. You have until the end of the month to figure out your own finances. I'm done." I walked out, and this time I didn't look back. That night, I sat in my tiny studio apartment, laptop open, spreadsheets glowing in the dark. I pulled up my banking records for the past 8 years and created a document titled Bailey Family Financial Audit. Then I started entering data. Mortgage payments for Oak Avenue, $187,200 property taxes, both properties. $24,800. HOA fees, $9,600 utilities, electric, water, gas, internet for both houses. $8,400 home insurance premiums. $5,212 emergency loans to Corbin. $2,200 total, $237,412. I stared at the number for a long time. That was nearly $250,000. If I'd invested that money conservatively, it would be worth over $320,000 by now. If I'd put it toward a down payment on my own house, I could own a beautiful 3-bedroom home in a good neighborhood. Instead, I had nothing, not even my name in a will. My cursor hovered over the cancel recurring payment button for my bank's automatic transfer system. One click and it would be over. In real estate, we have a fundamental rule. Never invest in property you don't own. I'd broken that rule for 8 years. I'd poured my heart, my money, and my future into assets that were never going to be mine, but I could stop. Right now, click, payment canceled. Click, utility auto pay canceled. Click, insurance policy payment canceled. Click, lawn service subscription canceled. With each click, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not even satisfaction. Just a cold, clear certainty that I was finally making the right business decision. 3 weeks later, my phone had 47 missed calls from my parents. I didn't answer any of them. Then my father showed up at my office. Prestige Realty occupied the ground floor of a glass and steel building downtown. I had a private office with a view of the city skyline and a desk that cost more than my monthly rent. I'd earned it. My assistant tried to stop him, but my father pushed past her and into my office. He looked terrible. His hair was greasy, his clothes wrinkled. There were dark circles under his eyes. "Alina, please, we need to talk." I didn't look up from my computer where I was reviewing comps for a client. "I'm working, Dad. The power has been shut off, the water too. Your mother is staying with her sister, and I'm..." His voice broke. "We can't live like this." "Then pay your bills." "We don't have the money. You know that." I finally looked at him. "Then I suggest you ask your son, the one who's inheriting $1 million worth of real estate. Surely he can help. Corbin doesn't have any money. And whose fault is that?" I kept my voice perfectly level, businesslike. "Dad, you and Mom made a choice. You decided to leave everything to someone who's contributed nothing. That's your decision to make, but you can't expect me to subsidize it anymore." He slammed an envelope down on my desk. "This came yesterday." I opened it. It was a notice of default from First National Bank, RE. Property at 1517 Oak Avenue, outstanding balance, $94,000 days past due, 90s notice. If payment is not received within 30 days, foreclosure proceedings will begin. I read it carefully. Then I read it again. "Dad, this says there's a $94,000 loan on Oak Avenue. You told me Oak Avenue was paid off. You told me the payments I was making were for property taxes." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's complicated. Uncomplicated." He sank into the chair across from my desk. 3 years ago, I took out a home equity line of credit on Oak Avenue, $120,000. For what? Silence. "Dad, for what?" "Corbin had a business opportunity. He needed investment capital. He promised he'd pay it back with interest once his company took off." I held up my hand. "Stop. Just stop." I opened my laptop and pulled up the multiple listing service database. As a licensed real estate agent, I had access to property records, sales history, and mortgage information for every house in the county. I typed in the address for Oak Avenue and pulled up the complete financial history. There it was, a $120,000 HELOC taken out in June, 3 years ago. Purpose listed as business investment for son's technology startup. I dug deeper, accessing public records, cross-referencing with county tax documents. The money hadn't gone to a business. It had gone to pay off Corbin's debts, $45,000 in credit card debt, $38,000 owed to payday loan companies, $22,000 to an investment in a cryptocurrency scheme that turned out to be a scam, $15,000. Unaccounted for, and for the past 3 years, I'd been making the payments on that HELOC. Every cent of the $187,200 I'd sent for the Oak Avenue mortgage hadn't been paying off a house. It had been paying off my brother's gambling debts, his reckless spending, his complete financial irresponsibility. I looked at my father. "You lied to me. For 3 years, you've been lying to me. You told me you needed help with property taxes. You told me times were tight, but really, you were using my money to clean up Corbin's messes. We didn't know what else to do. He was in trouble, Alina. Real trouble. Those payday loan people were threatening him. So you scammed me instead." "We didn't scam you. We were going to pay you back. When we pass, you'd get..." "Nothing. I'd get nothing, Dad, because according to that will, I don't exist." I looked at the notice of default again. The foreclosure auction was scheduled for June 15th, 30 days from now. I thought about my mentor, Patricia Reeves, who taught me everything I knew about real estate. She'd once told me, "The best investors know when to walk away from a bad deal, but the smartest investors know how to turn a bad deal into a good one." An idea was forming in my mind, a terrible, perfect idea. "Dad," I said quietly, "I want you to leave my office now." "But Alina, I know what you need and I know what I'm going to do about it. But right now, I need you to leave." After he left, I sat in my office for a long time, looking at that foreclosure notice. June 15th, foreclosure auction. I opened a new tab and checked my savings account balance. $156,000. It was everything I had. Every cent I'd saved beyond my basic living expenses over 8 years of brutal work weeks. Then I picked up my phone and called Patricia. "Patricia, it's Alina. I need your advice on something. How do you feel about foreclosure auctions?" I could hear the smile in her voice. "Why, Alina Bailey, are you about to do something wonderfully ruthless?" "I prefer to think of it as sound investment strategy. Tell me everything." And I did. Patricia listened without interrupting as I laid out everything: the will, the hidden HELOC, the $237,412, the foreclosure notice, and my plan. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Alina," she finally said, "I've been in this business for 30 years. I've seen people do terrible things to family over money, but I've never seen someone use their professional expertise quite like this. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "Then let me tell you exactly how to do it right." We talked for 2 hours. Patricia walked me through every detail of foreclosure auctions, how they work, what to watch for, how to prepare. She'd attended hundreds of them over her career, both as an agent and as an investor. "The key," she explained, "is that you're not doing anything illegal or even unethical. You're simply participating in a public auction. The fact that you have insider knowledge about the property's condition and history just makes you a smart investor. What about the $94,000 debt? Won't the bank want more?" That's the beautiful part. In a foreclosure auction, the opening bid is usually just the outstanding debt plus fees. But if there's no competition, you can get it for exactly that amount. With your knowledge of the local market and the timing, you'll have a massive advantage. And my parents can't stop it? Once the foreclosure process begins, they have no control. The house belongs to the bank until someone buys it at auction. If they wanted to stop it, they needed to pay the debt, which they can't do without you. I felt a strange mixture of emotions: guilt, excitement, vindication, and something that felt uncomfortably like revenge. "Is this wrong?" I asked quietly. Patricia was silent for a moment. "Is it wrong to stop letting people take advantage of you? Is it wrong to protect your financial future? Is it wrong to hold people accountable for their choices?" She paused. "Alina, you gave them 8 years and nearly $250,000. They gave you nothing, not even gratitude. You're not taking anything from them. They already lost it through their own actions. You're just making sure it doesn't go to a stranger." That night, I started preparing. I pulled every record I had on Oak Avenue: inspection reports, comparable sales, property tax history, maintenance records. I knew that house better than anyone because I'd been paying for it for years. The property was worth approximately $340,000 on the current market. With the $94,000 debt, I'd be getting it for less than 30% of its value. It wasn't revenge, it was just good business. 1 week before the auction, I received a message from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown number. "Is this Alina Bailey, the real estate agent?" I almost deleted it. I get messages from potential clients all the time, but something made me respond. Me. "Yes, this is Alina. Who is this?" Unknown number. "My name is Jenna. I dated your brother Corbin about 3 years ago. I saw something on Facebook about your family situation. Can we meet? I have information you need to see." My first instinct was suspicion. This could be some scheme of Corbin's or my parents trying to manipulate me, but curiosity won out. Me. When and where? We met at a coffee shop downtown, far from my office and far from Maple Street. I arrived early and sat in a corner booth where I could watch the door. Jenna walked in at exactly 2 p.m. She was about my age, maybe a year or two younger, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and tired eyes that suggested she'd seen too much for someone so young. She ordered coffee and sat across from me. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I wasn't sure if you would. What information do you have?" She pulled out her phone. "I dated Corbin for about 8 months, 3 years ago. At first, he seemed great, charming, full of ideas, always talking about his big plans. But after a few months, the request started. 'Can you lend me $500? I'll pay you back next week.' 'My car broke down. Can you cover the repair? I have an investor meeting, but I need a new suit.' I knew the pattern. I'd lived it for years. By the time I finally left him, he'd taken $12,000 from me. He never paid back a cent." She swiped through her phone. "But that's not why I'm here. After I saw the posts about your situation on a community forum, someone had shared the story. I remembered something. Screenshots I took before I deleted everything related to him." She turned her phone toward me. The first screenshot was from March, 3 years ago. "Corbin, Mom and Dad are doing their will next week. I finally convinced them." "Jenna, convince them of what?" "Corbin, to leave everything to me. Both houses. Alina makes bank as a real estate agent. She doesn't need it. But me? This is my inheritance. My security." "Jenna, but doesn't Alina help them financially?" "Corbin, that's her choice. Besides, when I sell those houses, I'll have like $2 million. Then I can finally start my real company. No more small-time shit." I felt physically sick reading it. She swiped to the next screenshot, dated July of that same year. "Corbin, LOL. Alina just sent another $5,000 for an emergency. Told my parents to say Dad needed dental surgery." "Jenna, did he actually need dental surgery?" "Corbin, nah, but she always falls for the medical stuff. She's too nice for her own good, or too stupid, depending on how you look at it." "Jenna, that's really messed up, Corbin." "Corbin, whatever. She can afford it. She's making like $150,000 a year. What's $5,000 to someone like that?" I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking so hard I had to set down my coffee cup. "There's more," Jenna said quietly, swiping to another screenshot from August 2.5 years ago. "Corbin, just got $20,000 from the HELOC on Oak Avenue. Gonna finally pay off those payday loan fuckers." "Jenna, I thought you said your business was taking off. Why do you need to borrow against your parents' house?" "Corbin, because the business isn't actually real, LOL. But my parents believe in it, and Alina's paying the mortgage on it anyway, so it's basically free money. They won't even know until after they're dead, and by then I'll own the house outright." "Jenna, this is fraud, Corbin." "Corbin, it's called being smart. My parents are stupid with money, Alina's a bleeding heart, and I'm the only one with the brains to capitalize on it." That was the last screenshot, dated 2 days before Jenna broke up with him. I looked up at her. "Why are you showing me this now? Why not 3 years ago?" "Because 3 years ago, I was embarrassed. I felt stupid for falling for his lies, for giving him my money. I just wanted to move on and forget." She leaned forward. "But when I saw what happened to you, how he'd taken $250,000 from his own sister, how your parents betrayed you, I realized this wasn't just about me being gullible. This is a pattern. This is who he is, and someone needed to stop him." "Do you want the $12,000 back? Is that why you're here?" She laughed, but it was bitter. "I love the money back, but I'm realistic. I'm here because I don't want him to win. I don't want him to get those houses, sell them, and use the money to hurt more people. And honestly," she met my eyes, "I'm here because I think you're the only one who can actually do something about it." I looked at the screenshots again. The casual cruelty, the calculated manipulation, the complete lack of remorse. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was about stopping someone who saw other people as resources to exploit. "Jenna," I said slowly, "would you be willing to sign an affidavit about these messages, about the money he took from you?" "Absolutely. But why?" "Because if things go the way I think they will, I might need evidence that Corbin has a history of financial fraud. Just in case." She smiled. "I'll do whatever you need. It's been 3 years, and I'd really like to see karma catch up with him." After Jenna left, I sat in that coffee shop for another hour thinking. I pulled out my laptop and did something I should have done years ago. I accessed the county's public property records and searched for every property connected to Spencer Bailey. 428 Maple Street, listed jointly owned with Nomi Bailey. 1517 Oak Avenue, listed jointly owned with Nomi Bailey. And then I saw a third address, 2847 Riverside Drive. I clicked on it. It was a small 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house in a neighborhood about 45 minutes outside the city. Purchase date, October 2015. Owners, Spencer and Noemi Bailey. I'd never heard of this property, never even knew it existed. I dug deeper, pulling up tax records. The property was listed as a rental. Current assessed value, $280,000. I searched for rental listings and found it on several property management websites. Monthly rent, $1,800. My hands started shaking again as I did the math. October 2015 to now. That was 8.5 years. If they'd been renting it out that entire time at $1,800 per month, $1,800 times 102 months equals $183,600. They'd collected almost $200,000 in rental income while telling me they were struggling financially, while asking me for money every single month, while claiming they couldn't afford their basic bills. I pulled up the property tax records. The mortgage had been paid off in 2019, 4 years ago. So for the past 4 years, that $1,800 monthly rent was pure profit. And where was this property in the will? I already knew the answer, but I pulled up the photos I'd taken of the will documents on my phone. I scrolled through until I found it. Page 18. All real property located at 2847 Riverside Drive, including all improvements and fixtures, shall be transferred to Jacob Mitchell Thompson, Corbin Bailey. They had a third property worth $280,000, generating $21,600 per year in passive income, and they'd hidden it from me while taking my money every month. The total inheritance they were leaving to Corbin, approximately $1.8 million. The total they were leaving to me, old photographs and personal effects at executor's discretion. I closed my laptop and sat in the coffee shop staring at nothing. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was too hot, too emotional. What I felt was cold and crystalline and absolute. Clarity. June 15th arrived with clear skies and warm sunshine. The kind of day when people fell in love with houses and made offers over asking price. The foreclosure auction was scheduled for 8 a.m. at the county courthouse. I arrived at 7:30, dressed in a sharp navy suit and carrying a briefcase containing a cashier's check for $125,000. More than enough to cover the debt plus fees and any potential bidding competition. The courthouse steps were already crowded with about 20 people, mostly professional investors, some in suits, others in jeans and company polo shirts. I recognized a few of them from other auctions I'd attended as an agent. At 7:45, I saw my parents' car pull into the parking lot. They got out slowly, both of them looking smaller and older than I remembered. My father wore a wrinkled dress shirt. My mother had clearly been crying. They climbed the courthouse steps and stood off to the side, watching the crowd nervously. They didn't see me at first. I was standing behind a group of taller investors, partially hidden. When my mother finally spotted me, her face went pale. She grabbed my father's arm and pointed. They started walking toward me, but I held up my hand in a clear stop gesture. They froze. I didn't want to talk to them. There was nothing left to say. At exactly 8 a.m., the auctioneer stepped out onto the courthouse steps. A heavy-set man in his 50s with a booming voice and a stack of property files. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have 8 properties up for auction today. Let's begin with lot number 1, 1517 Oak Avenue, a single-family residence with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, approximately 1,800 square feet. He rattled off the property details. I'd lived through every one of them. I knew the creak in the 3rd stair. I knew the leaky faucet in the master bathroom. I knew the oak tree in the backyard that dropped acorns on the roof every fall. Outstanding debt plus fees brings us to an opening bid of $98,000. Do I have $98,000? 3 hands shot up, mine included. $98,000. Do I have $100,000? 2 hands, including mine. $105,000? 4 hands now. 2 new bidders had jumped in. The bidding continued rapidly. $110,000, $115,000, $118,000. At $118,000, it was down to me and an older man with silver hair who I recognized as Mr. Davidson, a professional investor who flipped houses. $120,000, Mr. Davidson called out. $125,000, I said clearly. Mr. Davidson looked at me, calculated for a moment, then shook his head and dropped his paddle. He knew what I knew. The house would need work, and at $125,000, the profit margin was getting too thin. $125,000 going once, the auctioneer called, going twice. I saw my mother grab my father's shoulder. I saw my father's face crumble. Sold to bidder number 47 for $125,000. The auctioneer pointed to me. Please see the clerk inside to complete your paperwork. I walked toward the courthouse entrance. As I passed my parents, my mother reached out. Alina, please. I stopped, but didn't look at her. The house was foreclosed 3 weeks ago, Mom. It hasn't belonged to you since then. I just bought it from the bank. There's nothing illegal or unethical about that. It's just business. What are you going to do? My father asked, his voice breaking. What any new property owner does, take possession of my investment. I walked inside, leaving them on the steps. The paperwork took 2 hours. By 10:30 a.m., I was the legal owner of 1517 Oak Avenue. The clerk handed me the deed, and I felt something shift inside me. Not triumph exactly, but vindication. For 8 years, I'd poured money into this house. Now it was finally mine. I called my attorney, Diana Torres, from the courthouse steps. It's done, I told her. I'm the owner. Congratulations. Ready for phase 2? Absolutely. Draft the eviction notice for Corbin. I want him out within 5 days. You're sure about this? He's been living in that house rent-free while I paid the mortgage. He has no lease, no rental agreement, no legal right to be there. As the new owner, I want him removed. I'll have the papers ready this afternoon. The sheriff can serve them tomorrow. 3 days later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Ms. Bailey, it was Sheriff's Deputy Anderson. I'm at 1517 Oak Avenue. We just served the eviction notice to a Mr. Jacob Thompson. He's not taking it well. I could hear shouting in the background. Is he being violent? No, ma'am, just loud. He keeps saying the house belongs to his parents, that this is illegal, that he's going to sue you. I explained that according to county records, you're the legal owner and he's an unlawful occupant. And? He demanded to call his parents. They're on their way now. I figured you'd want to know. Thank you, Deputy. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When I pulled up to Oak Avenue, there was a sheriff's car in the driveway and my parents' car parked on the street. I could hear Corbin yelling before I even got out of my car. Bullshit! This is my house! They promised me! I walked up the driveway. Deputy Anderson stood on the porch with his hand resting on his belt, a posture I recognized as controlled readiness. Corbin was standing in the doorway in sweatpants and a stained t-shirt, his hair greasy and uncombed. My parents stood on the lawn looking helpless. Corbin saw me and his face twisted with rage. You did this! You sabotaged us! I did nothing, I said calmly. I participated in a public auction and purchased a foreclosed property. You're currently occupying that property without permission, hence the eviction notice. This house was supposed to be mine. It was in the will. A will only distributes assets that exist at the time of death, Corbin. This house doesn't belong to Mom and Dad anymore. The bank foreclosed on it because they couldn't make the payments. The payments I was making until I stopped. You stopped on purpose to screw me over. No. I stopped because I realized I was subsidizing your inheritance. I was paying for a house that would never be mine, so I made a business decision to stop throwing good money after bad. You're a vindictive bitch, Deputy Anderson stepped forward. Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down. She can't do this. Can she do this? Corbin turned to my parents. Mom, Dad, tell her she can't do this. My father looked at me, and for a moment I saw something that might have been shame. Alina, maybe we can work something out. Maybe Corbin can rent from you. Or, no, I cut him off. According to the eviction notice, Corbin has 5 days to remove all his personal belongings from the property. After that, anything left inside becomes my property and will be disposed of. 5 days? Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem. You're 32 years old. Figure it out. My mother started crying. Alina, please. You're being cruel. Cruel? I turned to her, and I felt 8 years of suppressed anger finally surface. I gave you $237,412 over 8 years. I lived in a studio apartment while paying for this house. I worked 70-hour weeks while you told me you were struggling, and the whole time you were planning to give everything to him. I pointed at Corbin. You want to talk about cruel? We thought you didn't need it. You're successful. I'm successful because I worked for it, because I made sacrifices and you rewarded me by cutting me out completely. I took a breath, forcing myself to stay calm. You made your choice. You chose to protect him over me. Now I'm making my choice, and I choose to protect myself. I turned to Deputy Anderson. Thank you for serving the notice. The 5-day clock starts now, correct? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Thompson has until June 20th at 5 p.m. to vacate. Perfect. I'll be back on June 21st to take possession. I started walking to my car, but Corbin's voice stopped me. I'm going to sue you. I'll take you to court. You can't steal my inheritance. I turned back. Go ahead. Hire a lawyer. Though I'm curious how you'll pay for one, considering you don't have a job and you owe me, $2,200 in emergency loans you never repaid, plus the $12,000 you stole from your ex-girlfriend Jenna, plus whatever you owe to everyone else you've scammed? His face went white. How do you know about Jenna? Because unlike you, Corbin, I do my research. I investigate my investments. And you? You're a terrible investment. You always have been. I got in my car and drove away, leaving them standing in the driveway of a house that was no longer theirs. 2 days later, Corbin actually hired a lawyer. I knew because my attorney Diana called me, laughing. You're not going to believe this, she said. He filed a motion to stop the eviction, claims you interfered with his inheritance rights. Can he actually do that? Technically, anyone can file anything, but it'll get thrown out. You didn't interfere with anything. The foreclosure happened independently of you. You then legally purchased the property at auction. He has no claim. When's the hearing? Next week. But, Alina, I should warn you, family court judges sometimes get sympathetic in cases like this, not because there's a legal basis, but because of optics. Let them be sympathetic. I have evidence. I have bank statements showing every payment I made. I have the foreclosure records. I have the auction documentation. Everything I did was legal. I know. I just want you prepared. The hearing was scheduled for June 19th, one day before Corbin's eviction deadline. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, with an American flag in the corner and a tired-looking judge who'd probably heard 100 cases like this. Corbin sat at the plaintiff's table with his lawyer, a young guy in an ill-fitting suit who looked fresh out of law school and desperate for clients. I sat with Diana, who wore a tailored gray suit and carried a briefcase full of documentation. All rise, the bailiff announced. Judge Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. Please be seated. Case number 2025-CV-3847, Thompson v. Bailey. Mr. Brennan, you're representing the plaintiff? Corbin's lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. We're here to stop an unlawful eviction that interferes with my client's inheritance rights. Ms. Torres? Diana stood. Your Honor, this is a straightforward property law case. Miss Bailey legally purchased a property at foreclosure auction. Mr. Thompson is residing in that property without permission, lease, or any legal right. She's entitled to evict him. Your Honor, if I may, Corbin's lawyer shuffled his papers nervously. My client was promised this property in his parents' will. Ms. Bailey deliberately allowed the property to go into foreclosure specifically to prevent him from inheriting it. This is tortious interference. Judge Morrison looked at me over her glasses. Ms. Bailey, did you have a legal obligation to prevent this foreclosure? I stood. No, Your Honor. The mortgage was in my parents' names. I was voluntarily making payments as a gift to them. When I discovered I'd been excluded from their will despite contributing $237,412 over 8 years, I stopped making voluntary payments. That's not interference. That's me stopping a gift. Do you have documentation of these payments? Diana opened her briefcase. Yes, Your Honor. 8 years of bank statements showing automatic transfers totaling $237,412. We've organized them chronologically. She handed a thick folder to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Judge Morrison flipped through it, her expression unreadable. Mr. Brennan, does your client contest these figures? Corbin's lawyer whispered to Corbin, who shook his head reluctantly. No, Your Honor. And Mr. Thompson, did you make any financial contributions to this property during this time? Corbin stood. Your Honor, I was trying to build my business. That's a no, Mr. Thompson. Sit down. She looked at the papers again. Miss Torres, Walk me through the foreclosure. Yes, Your Honor. When Ms. Bailey stopped making payments, the property went into default. After 90 days, First National Bank began foreclosure proceedings, which are a matter of public record. Miss Bailey then participated in a public auction, open to anyone, and purchased the property for $125,000, which was actually above the minimum bid. There was no manipulation, no insider dealing, no interference, just a legal purchase of a foreclosed property. Judge Morrison turned to Corbin's lawyer. Mr. Brennan, what exactly are you asking for here? We're asking the court to reverse the eviction and require Mrs. Bailey to transfer the property to my client as the rightful heir. The rightful heir to what, Mr. Brennan? The property doesn't belong to his parents anymore. It was foreclosed. It belongs to Mrs. Bailey, who purchased it legally. A will can only distribute assets that exist at death. This asset no longer belonged to the testators at the time of foreclosure. But, Your Honor, but nothing. Ms. Bailey had no legal duty to prevent the foreclosure. She had no legal duty to continue gifting money to her parents. And Mr. Thompson has no legal claim to property he never owned. This motion is denied. Ms. Bailey's eviction notice stands. Mr. Thompson has until 5 p.m. tomorrow to vacate. She banged her gavel. Next case. I walked out of that courthouse with Diana beside me and the June sunshine on my face. That was almost too easy, Diana said. He never had a case. He just thought he could intimidate me into backing down. What happens when he doesn't move out tomorrow? Then the sheriff forcibly removes him and I change the locks. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Please, Alina, can we talk? Your father and I are at Maple Street. We need to discuss this. I looked at the message for a long moment, then I texted back, I'll be there in an hour. It was time to finish this. Maple Street looked exactly the same as it had my entire childhood. The wide oak tree in the front yard, the white shutters my father had painted every 3 years, the brick walkway where my mother had planted petunias each spring. But it didn't feel like home anymore. Maybe it never really had been. I parked on the street and sat in my car for a moment, gathering myself. Through the living room window, I could see my parents sitting on the couch, waiting. They looked small and old and defeated. Good, I thought. Then immediately felt guilty for thinking it. I walked up the path and let myself in. I still had my childhood key, though I'd never used it in years. My mother stood up when I entered. Alina, sweetheart, don't. I held up my hand. I'm not here for tearful apologies or explanations. I'm here because we need to discuss logistics. My father remained seated, his shoulders slumped. We don't know what to do. About Corbin, about the house, about everything. I sat in the armchair across from them, the same chair where I'd sat 8 years ago when they first asked me for help. Full circle. Corbin has until 5 p.m. tomorrow to be out of Oak Avenue. If he's not, the sheriff will forcibly remove him. That's not negotiable. Where is he supposed to go? My mother asked. He's an adult. He can figure it out. Rent an apartment. Get a roommate. Get a job and support himself like the rest of us. He doesn't have any money. And whose fault is that? I kept my voice level. You enabled him for 32 years. You gave him a free place to live, free food, free everything. You even took out a $120,000 loan to pay off his debts. And how did he repay you? By expecting more. Silence. Mom, Dad, I said more gently, I didn't come here to punish you, but I need you to understand something. I'm done being the family bank. I'm done sacrificing my future for people who don't value my sacrifice. The only question now is, what happens next? My father looked up. What do you mean? I mean you're still living in this house, Maple Street, and according to the tax records, you're 3 months behind on payments here too. My mother's eyes widened. How did you... I'm a real estate agent, Mom. I know how to access property records. This house will be in foreclosure within 60 days if you don't catch up. We don't have the money, my father said quietly. Without your help, we can barely cover groceries. What about Riverside Drive? The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face went pale. My mother actually gasped. You know about Riverside? My father whispered. I know you've owned it since 2015. I know you've been renting it out for $1,800 a month. I know you've collected almost $200,000 in rental income while telling me you were broke. I leaned forward. I also know it's in the will, left to Corbin, just like everything else. Alina, we were saving that money for what? For Corbin's next failed business venture? For his next emergency? Don't lie to me anymore. I've had enough lies. My mother was crying now. We didn't know what to do. We thought if we told you about Riverside, you'd stop helping us with the other houses. You mean you thought I'd realize you didn't actually need my money, that you were just using me? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Mom? I felt my own voice starting to break. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you had income property, rental income, and assets worth almost $2 million. But you still took $237,412 from me. You still let me live in a tiny apartment while working myself to death. You still excluded me from everything. The truth hung in the air between us, ugly and undeniable. Finally, my father spoke. What do you want, Alina? You want us to beg? We'll beg. You want us to apologize? We're sorry. We're so sorry. We made terrible choices. We prioritized the wrong child. We took advantage of your kindness. We know that now. What I want, I said slowly, is for you to make a choice. A real choice, for once. What kind of choice? I pulled out a folder from my bag. Inside were documents Diana had prepared yesterday. These are 2 documents. The first is a gift deed for Maple Street, transferring full ownership to me, effective immediately. The second is a gift deed for Riverside Drive, same terms. You want us to give you all our property? My mother's voice was shrill. You don't have all your property anymore, Mom. Oak Avenue is already mine, and Maple Street will be foreclosed within 60 days unless someone pays $18,000 to catch up the mortgage, someone like me. So you'll pay it if we give you the houses? No, I'll pay it because they'll be my houses. You'll sign them over to me today, and in exchange, I'll assume all debts, bring the mortgage current, and allow you to continue living in Maple Street rent-free. My father stood up, agitated. So we'd be tenants in our own home? You'd be tenants in my home, but free tenants, no rent, no utilities. I'll cover everything. You can live here for the rest of your lives if you want. What's the catch? My mother asked suspiciously. The catch is Corbin. If he sets foot in this house, ever, the deal is off. If you give him money, let him stay here, or have any financial dealings with him for the next 2 years, you're evicted immediately. And if you violate the terms, you'll have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. You want us to cut off our own son? I want you to stop enabling his dysfunction. He's 32 years old and has never supported himself for a single day. Maybe if he actually faces consequences, he'll finally grow up. My parents looked at each other, some wordless communication passing between them. And if we don't sign? My father asked. Then Maple Street goes into foreclosure in 60 days and you'll be homeless. Riverside Drive will stay in your names, but you'll have to manage it yourselves. Find tenants, handle repairs, deal with all the landlord responsibilities. And when you eventually die, Corbin will inherit both remaining properties and I'll inherit nothing. Is that what you want? More silence. We need time to think about it, my mother said. You have until tomorrow at noon. That's when Corbin's eviction is final. After that, I want a clean break. Either we have a new arrangement or we don't. Your choice. I stood to leave. Alina, my father said quietly, do you hate us? I stopped at the door and turned back. For a moment, I tried to find the right words. No, Dad, I don't hate you. I'm just tired. Tired of being the responsible one. Tired of sacrificing while Corbin takes. Tired of being invisible in my own family. This isn't about revenge. It's about survival. My survival. I left them sitting there and drove back to my apartment, feeling emptier than I'd expected. June 20th, 5 p.m. I arrived at Oak Avenue with Diana and a locksmith. The sheriff's department had already confirmed that Corbin had not vacated the property. Deputy Anderson was waiting on the front porch. Miss Bailey, Mr. Thompson is still inside. We've knocked multiple times. He's not answering. Break down the door, I said. Diana put a hand on my arm. Alina, let's follow protocol. Deputy Anderson, you're authorized to enter? Yes, ma'am. We have the court order. The deputy used a battering ram on the front door. It took 3 hits before the lock splintered and the door swung open. The house was a disaster. Empty beer bottles everywhere. Pizza boxes stacked in corners. The smell of garbage and unwashed clothes hit us like a wall. But Corbin wasn't there, and neither was anything else. The living room was empty. No couch, no TV, no furniture at all. I walked through to the dining room. The table was gone. The chairs, gone. In the kitchen, the refrigerator had been removed, leaving only the water line dangling. The microwave, gone. Even the curtain rods had been taken down. "He stripped the house," Diana said, her voice tight with anger. I ran upstairs to the bedrooms. Every room was bare. The beds, the dressers, the nightstands, all gone. In the master bedroom, I noticed the closet door was open. There was supposed to be a small safe in there installed by my grandmother years ago. She'd left it to me specifically in her will. It contained some of her jewelry worth approximately $25,000. The safe was still there, but it had been pried open, the door hanging at an angle. Inside, empty. I felt something crack inside me. That jewelry wasn't just valuable. It was the only thing my grandmother had left specifically for me. The only person in my family who'd ever thought I deserved something of my own. And Corbin had stolen it. "Deputy Anderson," I said, my voice surprisingly calm, "I'd like to file a police report for theft. Burglary, actually, since he broke into the safe." "Ma'am, he was living here until today. It's complicated." "No, it's not. I have the deed showing I'm the owner as of June 15th. He was given legal notice to vacate by today. Any property in this house as of 5:01 p.m. belongs to me." And he removed approximately $40,000 worth of items, including jewelry from a safe that was left to me in my grandmother's will. Diana was already on her phone. "I'm calling our investigator. We need to document everything, get an itemized list, and—" "Alina, wait. Look." She was pointing to the corner of the room, a small camera, poorly hidden behind a picture frame that Corbin had left behind. "You installed cameras?" Diana asked. "A week ago. I had a feeling he'd try something. Then we have him on video." The police came and took my statement. The investigator Diana hired documented every missing item. And that night, I sat in my apartment watching the camera footage on my laptop. There was Corbin at 2 a.m., 3 days ago, the day after the court hearing. 2 friends with him loading furniture into a U-Haul truck. But the damning part came when they reached the safe. "You sure about this, man?" one of his friends asked. "It's my family stuff," Corbin said, crowbar in hand. "That bitch Alina stole my inheritance. I'm just taking what's mine." "Didn't the judge say the house belongs to her?" "Fuck the judge. This was supposed to be my house. My parents promised me." He pried open the safe and pulled out a velvet jewelry box. "Jackpot. This is my grandma's stuff, worth like 30 grand. I thought your grandma left that to your sister." Corbin laughed. Actually laughed. "Alina doesn't deserve shit. She's got a career, money, everything. I've got nothing. This evens the score." The footage continued, showing them loading the last items into the truck. Just before leaving, Corbin turned to the camera, still not knowing it was there, and flipped off the house. "Fuck you, Alina," he said to the empty room. "You think you won? I'm gonna sell all this shit and finally start my real life. You can have your empty house. I've got what matters." I saved the footage, backed it up to 3 different locations, and sent it to the police. Corbin was arrested the next morning at a storage unit where he'd stashed everything. The charges were extensive: burglary, grand theft, violation of court order. Because the jewelry alone was worth over $25,000, it was classified as grand theft, a felony carrying potential prison time. My mother called me, hysterical. "Alina, you have to drop the charges. He's your brother. They're saying he could go to prison." "He committed a felony, Mom. That's not my decision. That's the district attorney's." "But you could refuse to cooperate. You could say you gave him permission." "I'm not going to lie in a police report. And I'm certainly not going to commit perjury to protect someone who called me a bitch on camera while stealing my grandmother's jewelry. He was upset. He didn't mean—" "I don't care what he meant. I care what he did." I took a breath. "Mom, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. If our positions were reversed, if I had stolen from Corbin, would you be calling him right now, begging him to drop charges?" Silence. "That's what I thought." "Alina, please. I'll make you a deal. I'll talk to the DA about a plea agreement, reduce charges, probation instead of prison time, community service. But only if you and Dad sign those gift deeds, today. And only if you agree to the terms about Corbin. You're using this to blackmail us." "No, Mom. I'm giving you a choice. You can keep protecting Corbin and watch him go to prison for felony theft. Or you can sign the papers, accept my terms, and I'll help minimize his legal consequences. But you can't have both. You can't keep taking from me while giving everything to him." Another long silence. Finally, "Where do we sign?" 3 hours later, I met my parents at a notary's office downtown. Diana was there with all the paperwork: the gift deed for Maple Street, the gift deed for Riverside Drive, a lease agreement allowing them to live in Maple Street rent-free, a contract outlining the terms, no contact with Corbin for 2 years, no financial support to him, or immediate eviction. My father's hand shook as he signed. My mother cried through the entire process. When it was done, the notary stamped everything and Diana collected the documents. "It's official," Diana said. "Alina Bailey is now the sole owner of all 3 properties." My parents sat there, looking like they'd aged another 10 years. "I'll have the mortgage on Maple Street brought current by the end of the week," I told them, "and I'll set up automatic payments for utilities, insurance, everything. You won't have to worry about any of it." "Thank you," my father said quietly. "Don't thank me. Just keep your end of the agreement." I started to leave, but my mother called out, "Alina, do you think you'll ever forgive us?" I turned back and looked at them, really looked at them. They were my parents. They'd raised me, taught me to ride a bike, cheered at my high school graduation, but they'd also betrayed me in the deepest way possible. "I don't know, Mom, maybe someday, but right now, I'm just trying to survive the damage you caused." Corbin's plea agreement was finalized 2 weeks later. Instead of felony burglary, he pled guilty to misdemeanor theft and violation of court order. His sentence: 18 months probation, 300 hours of community service, and restitution of $43,000 to me, $25,000 for the jewelry, $18,000 for the furniture and appliances. The DA set up a payment plan, $200 per month for the next 18 years. I'd probably never see most of that money, but that wasn't the point. The point was accountability. The jewelry was returned, though Corbin had already sold 2 pieces. I had to buy them back from a pawn shop, which cost me another $3,000. But I got my grandmother's necklace back, the one she'd worn every day of her life, the one she'd specifically left to me because, as she wrote in her will, "Alina is the only one who remembers to visit me every week." I wore it the day I officially took possession of all 3 properties. 6 months later, I sat on the newly renovated deck of Oak Avenue, my primary residence now, watching the sunset over the neighborhood I'd grown up in. The house looked completely different. I'd gutted the interior, updated everything, and turned it into exactly what I'd always dreamed of: a real home. Not my parents' house, not an investment property. Mine. Maple Street remained my parents' residence. They lived there quietly, following all the rules. My mother had started therapy. My father had gotten a part-time job at a hardware store, not because he needed the money, but because, as he told me in a brief, awkward phone call, "I need to feel like I'm contributing something." We weren't close. We probably never would be. But we were cordial, civil. We saw each other once a month for a brief lunch where we discussed neutral topics like the weather and local news. It was better than nothing. Riverside Drive continued generating $1,800 per month in rent. I'd hired a property management company to handle it, and the income went straight into an investment account. In 18 years, when it was paid off, it would be pure profit. My career had exploded. After word got around about my real estate expertise and the dramatic story of how I'd legally outmaneuvered a foreclosure to reclaim my investment, other agents started referring complicated cases to me. I'd become the go-to agent for distressed properties and creative problem solving. My income had jumped to $240,000 last year. I'd been promoted to senior agent at Prestige Realty. Patricia had retired and recommended me as her replacement for several of her high-end clients. And for the first time in 8 years, every dollar I earned was mine to keep. Corbin had gotten a job at a big box retail store, stocking shelves for $16 an hour. He lived in a small studio apartment in a rough part of town and took the bus to work because he'd had to sell his car to pay legal fees. I knew this because my mother mentioned it once during one of our lunches, her voice full of worry. "He's struggling, Alina. He's really struggling." "Good," I said. "Maybe he'll learn something." She'd looked at me with such sadness, but she didn't argue. The restraining order kept him away from Maple Street and away from me. He'd tried to contact me a few times through mutual acquaintances, always with the same message. He was sorry, he'd changed, he wanted to make amends. I never responded. Some people deserve second chances. Corbin had already had about 50 chances. He'd used them all. 1 year to the day after the foreclosure auction, I hosted a dinner party at Oak Avenue. Patricia came, along with Diana and Jenna, who'd become an unexpected friend through all of this. We'd bonded over our shared experience of being exploited by the same person. We ate on the deck, drank good wine, and talked about everything except family drama. As the evening wound down and my guests prepared to leave, Patricia pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you, Alina. What you did, standing up for yourself, refusing to be taken advantage of, that took real courage." "Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh," I admitted, "if I should have been more forgiving." Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people continue to hurt you. You can forgive someone and still maintain boundaries. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. She squeezed my hand. "Your parents made their choices. Your brother made his choices. You made yours. And you chose yourself, finally. There's nothing wrong with that." After everyone left, I stood on my deck looking out at the neighborhood. In the distance, I could see Maple Street, where my parents were probably watching TV in the living room. I wondered if they ever thought about what they'd lost. Not the houses, but their relationship with their daughter. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. It didn't matter anymore. I'd spent 8 years trying to earn their love through sacrifice, trying to prove I was worthy of being valued, trying to be the daughter they needed. But I'd learned the hardest lesson of my life. You can't make people value you. You can only value yourself. And that's exactly what I'd done. I owned 3 properties worth $1.8 million, not because I'd inherited them, but because I'd earned them. I had a thriving career built on my own merit. I had boundaries that protected my peace and a future that belonged entirely to me. My grandmother's necklace rested against my collarbone, warm from my skin. I touched it gently, remembering the woman who'd loved me unconditionally and who'd taught me that love should never diminish you. It should build you up. "I did it, Grandma," I whispered to the evening air. I finally put myself first. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, and for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten: peace. People often say blood is thicker than water, but they forget that blood can clot, can poison, can become toxic, and sometimes the only way to survive is to stop the bleeding. I spent 8 years and $237,412 learning that lesson. I learned that family isn't an excuse for exploitation, that love shouldn't require you to sacrifice your future, that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. I learned that in real estate, you never invest in property you don't own. And I learned that the same rule applies to family. Don't invest your heart, your money, or your future in people who will never give you a return. My name is Alina Bailey. I'm a real estate agent, a property owner, and someone who finally learned the difference between kindness and weakness, between love and exploitation. This is my story of betrayal, survival, and the moment I chose to save myself. And I don't regret a single decision I made. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If this story resonated with you, or if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, know that you're not alone. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to put yourself first. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see your worth. If you found this story meaningful, please consider subscribing to this channel. I share stories of real people navigating complex family dynamics, standing up for themselves, and finding their way back to peace. Your subscription helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Take care of yourselves.